Hi guys, welcome to our daily encounter. Oftentimes when we encounter hardships and difficulties and trials and even tragedy, there's basically four questions we want to know. We want answered. Does Jesus know what I'm going through? Certainly if he knew what I was going through, perhaps he would do something to fix the problem. And maybe we think, well, because the problem hasn't been fixed yet, maybe he doesn't know what I'm going through. Maybe there's not a superior being who can see and know what's going on. Maybe we question, does Jesus even care? Maybe he knows what we're going through. Maybe he sees the trials and the difficulties and the hardships or the tragedy, but he just doesn't care. He just stands aloof, not really concerned. Maybe we are wondering, why doesn't he act quicker? Maybe because we've gone to him in prayer, we've submitted our problems, our troubles, our anxieties, our cares before him, and yet day after day, there is no answer. We wonder, why hasn't he answered our prayers and petitions more quickly? And then we might just ask, who's in control? Anyways, in the chaos, in the trials and difficulties, we might think, is there really anyone in control, or am I just a victim of my circumstances? Is it all random, and is there really anyone in control? These are questions that we ask oftentimes in these type of situations. Well, John chapter 11, I think, helps us in answering these various questions, because there you have a situation in which there certainly was a tragedy. Lazarus was sick. He became ill. Jesus tarried a couple of days, and then Lazarus ends up dying. And even Mary and Martha wonder, why didn't Jesus come? They wonder why Jesus had not come to their aid and had healed their brother of his sickness, I'm sorry. And why did he allow him to die? And a lot of these questions kind of come up in this particular story. But Jesus is shown to be one who answers these questions. For instance, it says, does Jesus know? That's one of the questions we would ask. And this text tells us that, yes, he does know. Not only did Jesus know the situation, he also knew where the situation was going. In verse 4, it says, but when Jesus heard this, he said, this sickness is not to end in death, but for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified by it. He knew about the sickness, but he also knew how that sickness was going to lead to the glorification of the Son of God. And so he definitely knows, and we should know that as well, that in the trials and difficulties, Jesus knows what we're going through. He sees the situation that we're in. He knows, and he not only knows the situation, he also knows how the situation is going to work out. And this is in line with what we see here in John chapter 11. But we also see in this chapter, Jesus actually did care. You might think, well, he hung back for a couple of days. He didn't get there and rush to Lazarus' aid. He didn't heal him of his sickness. So we might wonder, did Jesus care in this situation? And there's definitely indicators in this chapter that he definitely did care. In verse 5, it says, now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. He loved all three of them very much. And this comes out in verse 35. But we could also back up to verse 33, where it says, when Jesus therefore saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and was troubled. And said, where have you laid him? They said to him, Lord, come and see. Jesus wept. And so he definitely did care about Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. And that's something that becomes evident as he begins to weep, as he sees the other people in such distress. But we also see from this text that he does things in his own time. It is true that he didn't just rush down to heal Lazarus before he died. He stood back for a few days and waited, and then really waited till Lazarus was going to be dead by the time he got there, and therefore he was going to actually raise him from the dead. But he was going to do it all according to his timing. We see this in verse 6, where it says, "So when he had heard that he was sick, he then stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was." Jesus does things in his own time. That's something we have to remember. We always want the problem solved now. We expect that when it comes to some type of emergency situation. We want sirens to go off. We want ambulances to come to our aid, come to the scene and rescue us and heal us. And that's what we expect. And that's what we expect when we call 911. When we come to Jesus, we got to understand that he does things in his own time. And his time is always the right time. And so it may be the case that we pray to the Lord and maybe he says, you know what, I'm going to hang back for 2 days or 3 days or however long it might be, because he sees something that he can accomplish in the situation by tarrying that we perhaps don't see. And so we got to understand that he does things in his own time. And then we also see in this text that he's in control. In verse 11, it says, "This he said, after that, he said to them, 'Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I go so that I may awaken him out of sleep.'" And of course, there he was talking about death. He says, I'm going to awaken him out of sleep. In other words, I'm going to bring resurrection to Lazarus. And Jesus was completely in control. And that's why he could do things in his own time, because he was in control of the whole situation, even though it may not have seemed like it. And that's true of our lives as well. Even though it might seem like everything's chaotic, even though it might seem as though things are just happening randomly, we have to trust and know that he is in control. He's doing things in his own time. He definitely cares about us and about the situation. He knows about the situation. We just have to trust that he's in control and that he will work things out in the way that will work out the best for the situation, and especially for the greater good that could come out of the situation. So as we read John chapter 11 today, let's reflect on our lives, on those times when we've asked perhaps either one of these questions or maybe all of these questions. Does Jesus know? Does he care? Why hasn't he come quicker? Who's really in control? We know from John chapter 11 that he definitely does know, he cares, he does things in his own time, and he's in control. And that should bolster our faith in those times of difficulty and hardship. So these are some things we can reflect on and think about as we do our reading today. With that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. Hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.